In today's show, continuing our season preview series, diving into all things Shaedon Sharpe. Heading into year 4, is Sharpe ready for his big star breakout? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're continuing our season preview series, talking all things Shaedon Sharpe. In this one, we're going to run through every player on the roster, giving you a brief but thorough look at what they'll bring to the Blazers, how these season previews work as we look back to look forward. We'll talk about what Sharpe did in the 24-25 season. We'll talk best and worst case scenarios, and then we'll close the show talking role and expectations for this upcoming season. If you missed any of these, if you're a YouTube viewer, there's a playlist, season previews. Check them all out. If you are an audio listener, they are all labeled in the episode description, season previews. So just search however you are listening to this podcast, whatever audio platform you use, and you will find all of those episodes for this one, or for this season, because I've done them before too. Let's get into it. What did Shaedon Sharpe do in the 24-25 season? He averaged 18.5 points, 4.5 boards, 2.8 assists, shot 45.2% from the floor, including 31.1% from three. He shot 78.5% from the free throw line. He appeared in 72 games, playing 31.5 minutes, started 52 of those contests. Took him a little while to get started because he missed the first 8 games of the season with a labral tear in his left shoulder. Comes back in, first couple games off the bench, and then he jumps into the starting lineup after game 11 and onward. He played 31 consecutive games as the Blazers' starting shooting guard. During that stretch, he had 6 30-point games, including 2 in early November, back-to-back wins against Minnesota and Atlanta that flashed his immense offensive talent. Dude is a hooper, and occasionally he puts it all together, and it's like, oh, yeah, that is a gifted young man. He clearly has it in him. It's in some ways all about consistency and all about hitting your peaks with regularity with Sharpe. Particularly on nights when Sharpe needed to do more throughout the season. When Anthony Simons was out of the game, out of the lineup, Sharpe did step into those moments. He had, I'll talk more about his production without Anthony Simons in the lineup, but he was early in the season, he's the starting shooting guard, but the team's struggling. They're not particularly good on offense. They're not particularly good on defense. And then following a loss to Houston on January 18th, Sharpe is demoted to a bench role. He moves to a reserve role. And Chauncey Billups explains in no uncertain terms at pregame, why he chose to make that decision is because it was a lack of defensive focus and a lack of defensive effort and production. It was later reported by the Athletic that Chauncey had kind of begged Sharpe to do more on defense. Said, "Okay, come on, you have to do more on defense, or you're going to lose your spot." And it didn't. It just didn't work. So he took it to another measure, and he had asked him to show him more on that end. And when he didn't, Shaedon Sharpe moved to the bench role for over a month, loses his starting role and moved to the bench for over a month. They moved Jeremy Grant to the starting lineup. That was January 18th. On January 19th, that's game 41. The season takes off. Undeniably, they win 10 of 11 from that point. Undeniably, the Blazers' season, like the best stretch of their season, coincided with moving Shaedon Sharpe out of the starting lineup. They went from a bad team to a pretty darn competitive one when he moved out of the starting lineup. That is not a one-to-one correlation, but it is an undeniable fact of what happened last year. Sharpe doesn't actually get back into the starting group until the last day of February. Jeremy Grant gets injured. Sharpe all of a sudden has an opportunity, and he comes back as a starter and has 25 points, 4 boards, and 5 assists. They win a road game in Brooklyn. He plays down the stretch. It's like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. He starts the final 21 games of the season, and he closed loud, with a bang. Silly season or not, like you get to that end of the year, March and April basketball, it is hard to tell what's real because some teams are actively trying to lose. We saw the Blazers play some teams that actively tried to lose mid-game. Some teams are resting for the playoffs because their seeding is locked up. Some teams are actively tanking. Other teams are sort of being selective about making sure they get their rest because they know they can't climb in the standings. It is a weird time of the year in the NBA. Silly season or not, though, Sharpe scored 30 points 3 times in his final 5 games, including a career-high 37 at Utah. In the moment, slightly overshadowed by missing 3 of 4 free throws down the stretch at the end of regulation, and they lost in overtime. But prior to literally those free throws, it's like, he would have had a 40-piece if he makes those. A 40-piece in a win if he makes those. It was sort of the end of Sharpe's run of being like, you can really score. Like, this dude can really score. And while he didn't take a jump as a shooter in his 3rd season, in fact, it was the worst shooting season percentage-wise of his career, although the flavor of threes, I think, has gotten increasingly harder as he has grown into the league. He's taken a bunch more off the dribble 3-pointers. In some ways, that is a requisite skill for someone of his ilk and position, but it's also true that he didn't take those early in his career. Like, he was kind of a totally okay 3-point shooter in his rookie season. He has not been that. Year 2, he didn't play a ton. He missed 50 games or whatever it was. He played 32 games. So, but he was like an okay shooter. And then year 3, he was a bad 3-point shooter, 31% from 3. Not above the break threes. Shaedon Sharpe shot 30%. Shot a little better in the corners, right? But again, like, because of his role, he's more of an above the break, on the ball type of guard, as opposed to like stick him in the corner and let him and make sure you don't get that kind of attention. But despite that, he really showed some flashes on offense, and particularly at the rim. Down the stretch of the season, like in the second half of the year, shot north of 75% at the rim. All season long, he shot 71% at the rim, which is an elite finishing number. It is the mark of really good players that they get themselves to the rim on their own and they finish when they get there. And Shaedon Sharpe, 48.4% of his rim field goals were assisted. That is about the percentage of stars. That is, in line with J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and in OKC. That's in line with Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. Like, these are your star, wings. J-Dub is more of like a 3-4, but again, like a self-creative, self-creator on the wing, drive from the perimeter type of player. Anthony Edwards certainly like the 2 guard that you hope that Shaedon Sharpe can eventually grow into, albeit that's a big leap because Anthony Edwards is really freaking good. But it's the type of like self-creator skill that makes for very, very, very good wing scores. And Sharpe, during his 3rd NBA season, at 21 years old, was among the elite finishers at the rim. I think this is really the skill that took a leap. He's been a pretty good rebounder for his first position. He's like an above average rebounder. I think that's a skill that he has that's like well above average. He's not like the best rebounding shooting guard in the NBA, but he's a good one for his spot, for his position and size. He's not a great shooter, he's not a great passer. Has obviously had some real struggles on defense. He lost his freaking starting spot in year 3 when they kind of had every reason to give him opportunity. He couldn't hold on to it, but the rim finishing and the ability to get there on your own. Like, Sharpe doesn't have a super tight handle, right? And I don't think he has a crazy explosive first step, but what he does have is a lot of strength and a lot of body control. So when he does get his shoulders past you, he's really hard to knock off his line as a driver. And when he leaps, his ability to hang in the air, finish through contact, absorb that contact. Obviously he has some crazy dunks, right? It's like, I'll ask Justin Champagnie in Washington when Shaedon Sharpe got a steal on the break and put up one of the best dunks of the season on him. But like, even without the dunks, just the layup, the finishing, the layup package, the ability to get himself to inside of 4 feet and finish around folks, get swooping layups, sky over people, hang in the air for a little two-handed, like falling down jump shots because you just have that strength. Like, that is some elite skill stuff. To me, that is what makes Shaedon Sharpe really special. The other stuff is the question for him, he averaged 18.5 points per game at 21. He's a good scorer. He's a good scorer who hasn't shot well. He's like a career 33% 3-point shooter. I would call him a below average, if not straight up bad 3-point shooter. And yet he's averaging 18 a game at 21. if there are spaces where he can take a step forward as a shooter and as doing some secondary stuff and as a defender, like there is a package of things that other players don't have. The athleticism and that feel around the rim and the ability to get there. You improve a little bit in some areas with already that type of special skill. There is a place for Shaedon Sharpe to take a leap. And that's what I want to talk about in the second segment. What's the best and worst case scenarios for Shaedon Sharpe? Because I think we saw some real peaks and valleys in year 3, but taken as like from zooming out, it's like, you'd take 18, 5, and 3 from a 21-year-old. The question is, what else, how high and how high can he climb from there, and how often can he get to that level? Let's talk about best and worst case scenarios in the second segment. Join me there. First, though, let's talk about 5-hour energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients, with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. So what you're going to love about 5-hour energy is just you can take them with you. They are so portable. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it wherever you go and get that boost when you need it. So if it is at your desk, it's going to, you could fit a bunch of 5-hour energies in your desk at work. But if you're out and about doing things, they're going to fit in your purse. They're going to fit in your fanny pack. They're going to fit in your cool new cargo pants that you're wearing all the time. Depending on the size of your pockets, they're going to fit right in there. So find a flavor you like, whether that's fruit punch or some of their seasonal flavors, like they've got a pumpkin spice offering right now as we head into fall and winter. Check them out. Find what works for you, and then make sure that you're ready to say goodbye to boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get your favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in-store or online at 5hourenergy.com. That's number 5hourenergy.com. or on Amazon today. Today's program is also brought to you by the good folks over at DUER. You know what they're doing at DUER? They're making comfortable jeans, like my most comfortable jeans. I'm rocking the Relax Fit Taper, and I'm doing everything in them. I'm at work, I'm running errands, I'm playing with my kid, and I'm lounging, right? You can do it all. You can look good, be presentable, and go out into the world, and then you can still wear your really dang comfortable jeans when you're doing nothing. They got 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, so they feel stretchy without looking stretchy. They look like a nice pair of jeans, but they do everything you could possibly want to do in them. They let you, they are the jeans made for doing. They let you live your life. They also made with Cool Max, regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture, and keeps you cool and comfortable as temperatures change. Great for any season. DUER combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It's the best of both worlds. It's time to upgrade to the world's most comfortable pants. Get your own DUER jeans today. I know you'll love those too. And DUER are opening a new store right here in Portland on Northwest 23rd, opening later this September at 820 Northwest 23rd Avenue. The new era in denim. This is a new era of denim in Portland, and you can mention my promo code if you are experiencing that new era of denim. Locked on Portland in store. You get 15% off your first order when you visit them, or you can check them out online. Shop at DUER.com/lockedonportland for 15% off. That's shopDUER.com/lockedonportland. All right. So what we do in these second segments of these season previews is talk best and worst case scenarios. These are best case scenarios within reason. We're not talking MVPs for folks who have no chance of winning MVPs, and worst case scenarios without injury. We're talking worst case scenarios of stuff that happens on the basketball court, not what happens to bodies potentially breaking down. So for Sharpe and for a lot of these guys, I don't think there is a massive difference in the immediate between best and worst case scenario. I think what it means for best and worst case scenario for Sharpe is much more forward looking. That's what I want to talk about to sort of wrap up this program over the final 20 minutes here. But rock with me. What's the best case scenario for Shaedon Sharpe is that the outside shooting catches up with the rest of his offensive game, and Sharpe, a career 33% shooter from deep, pushes up to or even slightly above league average on something like 7 or 8 3-point attempts per game. He grows into a comfortable 3-level scorer, and he adds outside shooting into already a pretty impressive mid-range arsenal and elite finishing at the rim that he showed in his third NBA season. And because he's a competent scorer from everywhere on the court, the level of defensive attention that he demands ramps up, which makes playmaking reads easier. You know you're going to get 2 to the ball. You know you're going to get, predictable loading up on the backside when you have the ball in your hands, when you come downhill. So the reads are easy. They always help here. I can make that quick pass. It makes being scary makes simple passes so much simpler. And the best case scenario is that Shaedon Sharpe settles into being a good or even better than good. Let's call it excellent defensive rebounder. The playmaking comes around, and he is capable in moments of being an offensive engine, or in the very least, being a consistent go-to scorer with the level of efficiency as a go-to scorer that portends to offensive star ceiling. And that star ceiling is very obvious. The best case scenario is you don't have to squint. You just see it right in front of you, the consistent type of production and the dependability with efficiency that you say, okay, that dude's got it, and everyone is aware of him. The best players get attention. The play is called for them. Everyone knows the play is called for them, and you can't stop them. In the best case scenario is we see more of that from Sharpe, such that it is certain that that is where he's headed, to a level where that is always there. The best case scenario on the other side of the ball is that he's a decent defender, and at least an attentive off-ball defender. The best case scenario probably still leaves him as a below-average defender. Like, let's be honest about what he was in year 3 and what he's been throughout his career. Even the best case scenario probably means Shaedon Sharpe is not a plus defender in his 4th season, just considering the strides he would need to make. But the best case scenario is that all of his defensive struggles are about feel, and none of them are effort-based. What we're worried about is like, yeah, Sharpe doesn't have great feel on defense, but boy, he plays hard. That's a best case scenario. The best case scenario is that if Sharpe doesn't reach a contract extension, which he's eligible for prior to the start of this season, it's that when we get to the end of the year, because the shooting has come around, because the playmaking has come around, because the rebounding he's already pretty good at has taken a leap, and the defense, squares him up to being a competent, or at least not a massive issue on that end. Because of all of those things happen, we get to the end of the season, and he is a no-brainer $150 million plus contract, right? $150 million is the baseline for him, and we're talking more money than that. He is a surefire building block. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario for Shaedon Sharpe is that the shooting remains shaky at best, and he settles into his career average or worse from 3. A career average 33% shooter settles into being like solidly below average there, and we're talking 4 consecutive seasons of like seeing a guy who can't really shoot that well from 3, and you start to say, okay, maybe that's part of his game. That's the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is that the secondary stuff never clicks. So he doesn't get to grow his offensive game because the rebounding, he's like, oh yeah, he's a pretty good rebounder, but it's nothing really, really special. The playmaking never really comes around. He's like, yeah, he can make some passes, but whatever. And he sort of never grows his game beyond dude who can score, because he doesn't have those great secondary skills. He's a decent scorer from 17 and in. That's the worst case scenario. And that when we get to the end of the season, he doesn't look like a star on the rise, but merely a gifted shooting guard who doesn't shoot all that well. That's the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario sort of couples with a guy who just never quite gets it on defense. He's never like an imposing on the ball force, and more importantly, he's never competitive. And the worst case scenario is that he looks lost and not like he's always trying to figure out how to become unlost in the team scheme portion of defense. The worst case scenario is he's just a dude that seems to be cruising through the defensive possessions in order to get back to the other side of the floor where the fun stuff happens. The worst case scenario for Shaedon Sharpe is that you get to the end of the season and you don't feel like he's a star player on the rise. Perhaps some folks do, but it is no longer like okay, if he puts it all together. It feels like, yeah, we kind of know what the ceiling is. The worst case scenario is I think it still comes with a pretty high level of production. Like, I think even the worst case scenario, he's scoring 17, 18 points per game pretty easily because he can really score. But it's more about what you think his future will be. And the worst case scenario means when, should he not reach a contract extension this summer, is that the Blazers get into a position where they can lowball him, where they can squeeze him in restricted free agency because there aren't teams lining up to pay him and there isn't going to be money out there for him. And Sharpe ends up a victim, like we've seen some of these restricted free agents this summer, just a victim of a weird market and a weird system in the league. And while his bank account won't define his ultimate ceiling, a situation where he is struggling to get paid by the team that drafted him to be a guy who gets paid certainly isn't going to feel good on anyone's end. But again, I do think Sharpe's going, in terms of production, I don't think it slips that much. Like, he averaged 18 a game and was a bad shooter this year. He might average 18 a game and be a bad shooter this coming season. It's more about what's next. And that's what I want to talk about to close the show, is role and expectations. Because for Sharpe, he is one of, if not the top guy that's like, if this dude blossoms into a star, it changes the trajectory of the franchise. So much of the math this season hasn't changed. If Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe take off, and one or both of them is really, really good, this era of the Blazers is going to push forward and be really special. If neither of them do, or there's some sort of median outcome, then the ultimate ceiling for this team remains in the same sort of question marky place it was to begin last season, albeit like they're going to be more competitive, but we're talking about ultimate ceilings. Let's talk about role and let's talk about expectations to close the show. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let's talk Monarch Money. Do you know that most people just can't even name all of their financial accounts? Certainly don't know what they're worth. So whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface that's available on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So, Monarch's going to help you quickly identify, why aren't you saving as much as you thought? Why aren't you hitting your financial goals? Where do you have inefficiencies with your investments? It's also going to help you see, bigger picture if you happen to share finances with other folks in your life, where sort of everybody's spending money and how it all fits together in the bigger plan. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at Monarch Money with the code monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. What we do close the show is talk role and expectations. The best and worst case scenarios are supposed to be the poll, right? Like I said, I think in terms of production, in terms of on-court production, the polls are pretty narrow for Shaedon Sharpe. He's good. He's going to play. He's going to score. It's more about what's next. So I do want to focus on the sort of the potential aspect from Sharpe. But let's talk about role first. I think in a perfect world, Shaedon Sharpe is a no-brainer starting shooting guard on a team tailored to give him opportunity and an environment to succeed. And the 25-26 Portland Trail Blazers are probably not that. I'm not 100% sure he starts. My guess right now in September of 2025 is that he is not the starter. I don't think, if he does start, it wouldn't surprise me really, but I'm guessing right now that he won't start. And that is a guess. I wouldn't even call it an educated guess. That's just a guess based on sort of, I do think Jrue Holiday is absolutely a lock to start. So you're really choosing between one other guard spots, and it comes down to Scoot Henderson, Jeremy Grant, or Shaedon Sharpe. There's three guys basically for that last spot. So it could go a couple ways. I don't think it's going to be Sharpe right now. If it is Sharpe, it won't surprise me. Regardless of whether he's starting the game or coming off the bench, I still think he plays a bunch. 28 to 32 minutes. Book it. If he comes off the bench, 28. If he starts, 32. I think he's still gonna be a 30-minute a night guy. He's still gonna have a big role. He's still gonna have a lot of opportunity. I just think in a perfect world there wouldn't be like a there wouldn't be this sort of question mark about where he fits into the plan. And if there was question mark if it fits into the plan, it's because the team was really good. And the Blazers are like maybe competitive and better, but they're not like, they don't feel like a lock to be in the postseason, and still they're 21-year-old budding quality, if not much better than just quality shooting guard, like doesn't have like a natural place. And if he does have a natural place in starting lineup, this flip that to the point guard with a somewhat similar pedigree, although not near the level of production that Sharpe has shown in the league. I will say it, like I mentioned in the first segment. It's notable that the Blazers' most successful stretch of like winning basketball games last year did indeed coincided with moving Shaedon Sharpe to a bench role, and they lean more heavily on this bigger, more defensive starting lineup with Jeremy Grant in there. All that said, Sharpe, when he was in the game without sort of another one less high usage ball dominant player, he was typically really good. In 10 games without Anthony Simons last year, Shaedon Sharpe's numbers popped. 26.7 points, 5.8 boards, 3.7 assists. 27, 6, and 4. We're rounding up everywhere there. I guess we're rounding down in points, but let's call it 27, 6, and 4 in 10 games without Anthony Simons. You basically have one less dude on the court with Shaedon Sharpe that needs to dribble a bunch and have the ball in his hands. You give those opportunities to Sharpe. I think he improved as a pick and roll operator last year, particularly just like using the screen and staying close on screens and then having that little burst to get to the rim. He stays really low on a crossover. You'll see Shaedon Sharpe really low on a crossover, and if you don't stay with him laterally on that low cross, he can get to the rim. He doesn't have a crazy handle package, but he does have a couple moves that are like, I can get by fools. And again, it's the strength and the balance that allows him to get by and stay by guys with his that I think is a much stronger part of his game than like actual really strong ball handling moves. He certainly doesn't have the combos. He doesn't need combos. He probably needs like simple dribbling moves to get him where he needs to go. That would help. I even think as a ball handler, he showed some flashes last year of some passing where it's like, dang, I didn't know you could do that. Like that level of passing where it's like, whew, I straight up did not know that you could make those type of reads. He just doesn't do it consistently. He looks to score. And I want to touch on something here before I get into kind of my overall thoughts on Sharpe's potential. I often think Sharpe's kind of aloofness or lack of quote unquote dog in him is like misdiagnosed by the fan base. I get emails about this all the time, and folks in the YouTube comment section kind of talk about it from time to time as well. I think people just straight up misdiagnose what the sort of challenge is for Sharpe. I don't think it's that he doesn't work hard. Like, it's not like he's like, he's not committed to his craft and he'd be so good if he wasn't just like eating Cheetos and playing video games, right? I do think he plays video games a lot from what I understand, but like, I don't think it's that. And also I think his meal of choice is Chipotle, if I know a little bit about Shaedon Sharpe. I think he's a big Chipotle guy. But like, I don't think it's that he's just eating a burrito bowl and playing video games. I'm not questioning the work. I'm also not questioning someone who's not aggressive on offense. Talking about how he needs to be more aggressive is just like completely misdiagnosing it, talking about his offense. I'm doing a little straw man stuff. I'm going to try to lean away from that. I apologize. The straw men are not on this podcast. This is a podcast about me helping you understand Shaedon Sharpe better. Straw men, go away. But Sharpe was fourth on the team in usage last year, and first overall was Delano Banton, who shoots every time he touches it. So like among like big minute players, Sharpe was third. Ant, Denny, Shaedon Sharpe. And Denny had a lot more, ball handling and playmaking responsibilities than Sharpe. And I'm looking at the usage based on clean the glass usage, which includes playmaking, includes passing, because I think that's includes assists, because I think that's a better way to gauge like how many offensive possessions you truly used, right? Fourth on the team. Third among high minute players. He was second on the team in field goal attempts, third on the team in free throw attempts. Nothing about like Sharpe not playing hard has to do with offense, right? That's not it. The issue is that he doesn't always play hard on the other side of the ball, and it's the full effort stuff. I believe that playing hard is a skill. Some guys have the skill of playing hard. Some guys have the skill of jump shooting really well. If you're not a good jump shooter, sometimes you have to think about where your feet are, where your elbow is, how your hand releases, right? You have to think about your jump shot. If you are thinking about playing hard, you are a step or a half step or even just a half second late because you are thinking about playing hard. I think the issue for Sharpe is that, sometimes he settles for mid-range jump shots when he could really, really attack the rim. Although I think he got rid of that for the most part last year. He does take some more challenging step back threes, but I think that's decision making, not like dog or whatever. That's not effort. That's like choices, right? It's that you rarely see Sharpe being a guy who's playing harder than everyone else. And in a league, increasingly, if you watch the NBA Finals, where like the defining margins of the game were about effort, right? Both teams playing hard as heck. I thought that was the best part about Pacers Thunder, is this two teams that had the dial turned up way past 10. And everyone who comes in the court for, two teams that play deep plays incredibly hard. And you don't always see that from Sharpe. To me, that is what the the aloofness and the lack of the motor is. It's not that he doesn't have an off-season regimen, or that he doesn't shoot, he's not in the gym, or he's not like aggressive enough and could be more special on offense. It's that you don't see it on defense in terms of a commitment to being, like I said, the best case scenario is that the defensive mistakes are about feel, not effort. Bad feel, bad positioning, whatever. But there's some effort stuff with Sharpe on that, and I think that is the place where he could take a step forward. As I mentioned, like Sharpe, for me, the production is going to be there. We're talking about the future with him. I don't usually do number predictions in here because I think it's meaningless. Like putting a number on these guys, it's going to be injuries and things are going to change, right? But I'll do it for Sharpe. I'm not afraid. I think he's going to average 21, 5, and 3, 21 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, right? But I think the difference will be. Does it feel like a 21, 5, and 3 where he is just scratching the surface of a star turn, or where you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, he got to shoot a lot, right? It'll be like the games without Anfernee Simons. I mentioned those before when he had 27, 6, and 4. Well, he had almost identical efficiency numbers. And one of those games included a game in April 9th where he had 37 against the Jazz. Well, Denny Avdia didn't play in that game. Most of that 10-game stretch without Ant is about volume. It's about volume. For Sharpe, it's not just about can he get shots off? Can he be special? Can he get field goal attempts up? I'm not worried about that. Field goal attempts are like water. They'll fill whatever vessel. Without DeAndre Ayton and without Anfernee Simons, there'll be more opportunity for Sharpe should he be the one to fill it, or someone else will. I'm not worried about that. It's how good can you be? And if his low end outcome is something like 17, 4, and 2, and his high end outcome is like 22, 6, and 5 or something like that, we're talking about a pretty productive offensive player regardless. But I'll leave you with this stat. Players who were under 21 during January of any season in the NBA since 1947, there have been 85 such seasons of players of that age or younger who have averaged at least 18.5 points per game. Sharpe is on a relatively short list of players who were, if you think about the grand scheme of the game, obviously guys used to go to college. So 21 is guys who were relatively young when they hit the league, but 85 such seasons in the league. There are not many players at Shaedon Sharpe's age who have scored at the level he has scored at. But the question for me for when you get to the end of the season is not the numbers, right? I'm just not going to worry that much about the box score, because I think the box score is going to take care of itself, because I do think Shaedon Sharpe is a talent. It's when you get to the end of the season, does Shaedon Sharpe feel like Devin Booker, or does Shaedon Sharpe feel like OJ Mayo? Two players who average at least 18.5 before they turn 22. Does Shaedon Sharpe feel like Anthony Edwards, or does he feel like Colin Sexton? Two players to average at least 18.5 before they turn 22. It is, I think the expectations for Sharpe are not box score related for me. They are feel related. They are effort related. They are efficiency related. It could be the same numbers, but just he gets them better. Like he just makes more shots. The passing comes easier. All of those things. Like even if the assists don't get there, just like the reads are simpler. It's just going to be that feel. I don't know that I think that Sharpe has like true high end star outcome in him. Right? I don't know if I think that, but I do know that by the end of this year, we will have a good feel for what Sharpe can be. Because prove me wrong, or I don't know if wrong is the right word. He could change my mind about his ultimate ceiling pretty quickly, right? If this is a season in year 4 that he could take a pretty serious leap. He missed most of year 2. If you think this is something like his, he's played 2.5 seasons in the league, and this is a year, a big year for him in his third full season, chance to have a full season in the league. To me, that's what will change for Sharpe. Is this a guy who you get to the end of the year who's like, yes, he can be a star, or nah, he's good, but the chances that he's franchise pillar level good will change. I don't think at the end of year 4 you'll be able to make excuses or caveats or anything like that with Sharpe. I think this year is the year that he will make it clear. Is he capable of taking a big leap and being a franchise pillar, right? One of the 2 best players on a team that competes for a Western Conference Finals with consistency, or is he pretty good? If you're Colin Sexton and OJ Mayo, you might play a decade in the league as a long-term starter, right? A long-term starter, a long career as a productive player on good teams. Vinton James absolutely was that. Colin Sexton, I guess he's locked in Charlotte now, but he's been there, right? He's had some moments on some teams that are competitive to certain levels. It doesn't mean that Sharpe's done as a player, but I do think at the end of this season you will get that sort of clarity on what Sharpe's ultimate ceiling is, and I think that's what this season will be defining for. It'll also be his turn to get paid, whether he gets an extension, which he is eligible for prior to the start of the season, or whether he hits restricted free agency next summer when he does not reach an extension with the Trailblazers. This is a huge year for him and a fascinating one. I hope that this is when we do this next season. I'm not talking about potential and what ifs and what all this with Shaedon Sharpe. I hope we are talking about certainty. I hope we are talking about a dude who took a leap and is clearly this. Because when young players, and he certainly is still very young at 22, when young players take a leap, usually that their baseline lowers, and I think that'll be the quest for Sharpe is. If his baseline takes a significant rise this coming season, and you feel he's definitely going to be a 22 and something guy, that could be the potential for change for him in the future. That's going to do it for today's show. We are 1 week out as you're listening to this from Blazers training camp. 1 week from training camp. That means 4 more shows after this one. And then the Blazers will be practicing. They'll be, holding media. We'll be in the thick of preseason. So thanks for rocking with me. How about this? Tell your friends about the program. Tell them they can get it wherever they get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.